The Detroit Lions are in a very unique situation where they are coming off a 15-2 season, getting bounced in the divisional round and losing key components to their staff. And it kind of begs the question, how will they do next season? Or really, what is their Super Bowl window, and is it shrinking or is it growing right now? We're going to be answering that in today's video. What is up, guys? Welcome back to Back Sports, and I'm back with another video. And today we're going to be talking about answering the question, really, is the Detroit Lions Super Bowl window closing? And before we get into that, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. It really helps me create content like this for you guys. So please subscribe. Um, yeah, let's go straight into their depth chart because from on paper, they really do have a solid team because they still like retained a bunch of their players. They signed a lot of contracts to them. But I think the one key addition to their offense was their center in Ragnow, who unexpectedly retired this offseason. And they're going to definitely miss him when it comes to the run game and all such sorts of that. And the one thing is for certain is how good will this offense be without Ben Johnson? Obviously, Ben Johnson is on the Chicago Bears. And Ben Johnson was a key addition to their success, especially with how unique his play calling was, like utilizing the run game, two-headed horseman of uh, Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery being their two running backs, and Jared Goff having a really solid season, being top 5 in passing yards, and potentially even being in top 5 in the MVP voting as well. But it comes to the point where, how good is Jared Goff going to be without Ben Johnson helping him? And as of right now, it seems that, with the additions to their draft, this past draft, it was they really focused on the offensive line, getting Tate Ratledge, um, and a bunch of other players as well, like Miles Frazier in the third round. Just trying to get those the trenches still pretty solid and set, because I think that's what's going to be important, especially now building off on this team and kind of seeing what additions that we can do to this offensive line, because Glasgow is going to be your center now. So, and Glasgow is not bad whatsoever. He's going to be pretty solid for the Detroit Lions. I think that overall, as a roster construction standpoint, they're going to be okay. Let's take a look again at the roster, because let's talk about the defense, because you're going to have Aiden Hutchinson coming back from injury. He's been out and he was definitely missed for the Detroit Lions, especially when it comes to the defensive side, because I think while we would love to say that their defense was still really good, I just think that with Aiden Hutchinson, it would have been 10 times better. But we'll have to also see how good will Aiden be when he comes back from injury. It looks like he's very, he still has that quick step, has the ability to get to the quarterback still. He's still relatively young too, so I have no issue with him, coming back in full strength. You have Terry Nara, Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, DJ Reed, and Alex Anzalone as well, and Marcus Davenport, DJ Reader. Like, this first starting defensive starters are really solid. Like, no one can say anything about that. And then you're obviously gonna have your kickers and whatnot and your special teams. So going back to the Lions draft picks, because let's talk about that, because that's another key factor into how well they're going to be doing this year, because they drafted Tyleik Williams from from Ohio State in the first round. Tate Ratledge, like I said, from a guard from Georgia, who can also maybe play the center position if it needs to be. And then they also drafted Miles Frazier from LSU, excuse me, in the 5th round as well. So they have a lot of, they did everything they possibly can to kind of, prepare themselves for the exit of Ben Johnson. I think they realized that Ben Johnson was out the door after that playoff game, and it wasn't going to be necessarily they don't want it to be insane of a gap for their roster. So they want to construct the roster as much as possible for his departure. Let's talk about some notable losses for the team as well. You have departures like Ben Johnson, like I mentioned, Aaron Glenn to the New York Jets, Carlton Davis Kevin Zietler, and then Zadarius Smith. Obviously, he's been moving around in the league as well. And then obviously Frank Ragnow. I think that's one of the biggest like focal points of this offense was Ragnow. He was really good for this team, especially from an offensive line standpoint. And they're gonna really miss him and his production in the run game. And once it's really hard to find centers, and once you have a really good center and he decides to hang it up, it's kind of like, okay, who's the next man up? And while that may be the case, I think that they still have enough depth to find that question or fill up that question to see who will be really good for them going for the future. In terms of new additions, let's talk about that. One second. Yeah, new additions to their offensive staff. John Morton, offensive coordinator. Kelvin Shepard, who's their defensive coordinator now. Um, and Bruce Groskowski was their offensive assistant, former NFL quarterback. So, they're trying to get as much experience within the team, and they're trying to do internal promotions as well. Let's talk about their current coaching staff. Dan Campbell, now this year, where are we going to see, is he really the reason why this team is good? Because that was the question. Was it all Ben Johnson, or was it all, or like, was it also, Dan Campbell? Which, let's be real, Dan Campbell has really changed this team's culture. Like, hands down, no one can question that whatsoever. As much as Ben Johnson was good at the offense, like Dan Campbell's ability to, take risk, be aggressive in certain scenarios has paid off for the most part. And that's what has led the Detroit Lions to be a top team in the NFL. And, with the additions now that Ben Johnson is gone, you have assistant head coach Scotty Montgomery, John Morton, who was promoted internally. I'm going to go back to, where is that guy? Hank Fraley. That's the one, like the offensive line, our outside line, offensive line head coach, or the coach for that. Hank Fraley was someone that I really hoped that the Bears would get along with Ben. It would come along with Ben Johnson. So the fact that they were able to still retain him is really good for them. They're gonna really like him and how he's gonna determine the run game. I think with a couple of years under Ben Johnson, he's gonna be the focal point of that offense. And we'll have to see now. Like, will he continue what Ben Johnson continued as well, and how well will he work with John Morton as well as their offensive coordinator for the team? Dan Campbell will also have to, pitch into what play calls are going to be and whatnot. So we'll see what happens with that, because their schedule, let's take a look at their schedule, because their schedule is, relatively interesting. It's not like impossible, because that team is still really good, but they're going to have an early gauntlet, because you have Green Bay, the Bears. I mean, really, it's a toss up between the Bears and the Lions in the first stem, because I personally think that we might split with the Detroit Lions this year, but who knows what happens. And then Ravens, to be for the third week is kind of insane. Um, relatively light Ohio Bowl right here with the um, Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. Chiefs and Bucks are going to be two tough games back to back. And then you have your bye week, week 8, which is really good. I think I'd prefer like middle of the season bye weeks to early season bye weeks, which Chicago Bears do have. Vikings, Commanders, like they relatively have a solid schedule to kind of go with the Eagles, Giants. Same thing. They have to face the NFC East, and then the AFC North as well with the Steelers, and then you end up the season with the Vikings and the Bears, and also they have to face the Los Angeles Rams as well. So now let's talk about their offensive rankings for the year as well, because you got to really make sure that we nailed the point that their offense was churning with Ben Johnson. The last 2 years, they proceeded to provide 6.7K yards of offense and 6.9K yards of offense the following season. The fourth down conversion percentage with Ben Johnson, like almost increased by more than 10% for the following year in 2024. And then third downs was a lot more improved. So the offense continued to improve under Ben Johnson over the course of the year. So we have to see, will Dan Campbell be able to do that? And I'll give my take at the end of this video. I'm just providing all the stats for you and all the, the things to consider, and and then it went from 5 losses to 2 losses the following season. So they increased it by 3 wins and decreased their losses by 3. So with all that being put together, can the Detroit Lions still make it to the Super Bowl? Absolutely, they can. Do I think that their Super Bowl window is shrinking? I think it is, just barely though. And it's not to knock what the Detroit Lions are doing, because there's like, as a Bears fan, I've seen what they're doing with what they have. They've killed it. And then from when they hired Ben Johnson, Dan Campbell improved every single season, became a force to reckon with in the NFL. Like, you got to give them their props for sure. But in terms of their Super Bowl window, like, you only have a certain amount of time before things start to catch up to you. And with the loss of Ben Johnson and the rest of your staff as well, with Aaron Glenn, who has been a really good defensive coordinator for you, given the amount of injuries that you guys have sustained, like, there's nothing much Aaron Glenn could have done to prevent what happened, to the Commanders in the divisional round. Like, you can't really fully blame him because of all the injuries. Like, he tried his best when it comes to that. But then again, he's gone now. But now it's a matter of who's going to be the next step. If Dan Campbell proves to be, like, really reliant on his coordinators and everything, and it comes out that he's not really, he's just mainly a locker room guy or a locker room presence, then they're going to definitely have some issues when it comes to making it back to the playoffs. I feel like they will make the playoffs no matter what. I just think that when they're talking about a deep playoff run, is going to be a little bit tricky, especially with that kind of a play or coaching style. And it really just depends on, how bought in still are the Detroit Lions as a team, which I doubt they aren't bought in, because they're still really good as a team and they're going to have that culture still, that culture they've built and accumulated over the couple of years. But it's a really matter of how will they mesh with their new system, with their new offense, with their new coordinators because when new coordinators leave, or when the old coordinators leave and new ones come in, it's very, like, hard at times, depending on the team, to replicate what you did the previous season. And that's the obstacle that the Detroit Lions are going to face, because that's what the NFL is all about. Things change, coaches move on to different teams and new opportunities. And that being said, it's going to be really interesting to see how they're going to do with the with the new staff that they have. So that's one key factor. That the staff is definitely going to be a key factor. The strength of schedule is also going to be important to how their success is going to be. I just think that if they lose to teams like the Baltimore Ravens and Kansas City Chiefs, it's going to put a little blunder to them when it comes to making it back, because while the NFC conference is relatively easy, and I think that with teams like the Commanders, the Eagles, the NFC North as a whole improving, um what else is there? The Buccaneers slightly improved with their defense, but without their defense. But there's still teams in the NFC that are still going to be a problem for you. So keeping that in mind, and along with that, trying to mesh with your new offensive staff and defensive staff is going to be a little tricky. Um, because if you did have that cohesion to, like, continue, say Ben Johnson stayed another year and try to run it back, I think they would easily make it back. Like, there's no chance, it's like no problem at all. I just think that there's a little bit of a question mark when it comes to, can they be a cohesive unit with this new staff? And I think I'm repeating myself at this point when it comes to that, because I think that's how important, you know, like, of a factor it is going to be when it comes to determining the Detroit Lions' success this upcoming season. And yeah, just that's pretty much it, because it's like, if they can really fix that, and if they can, come together with, the new staff and whatnot, they have no problem. They will have no problem at all this year. And it hurts me to say that, because I really hope the Bears can do it. But then again, you got to give the Lions the props that they deserve. Well, that's going to do it for today's video. In terms of their Super Bowl window shrinking. I don't think it is. I think it's slightly shrinking. I don't think it's anything insanely crazy because they still have a really good team. They have, the same head coach, cohesiveness, continuity for most relatively speaking. Because and the NFC is not that. It's improved, but it's not going to be like a gauntlet like the AFC conference is. That's going to do it for today's video. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know what other content you want me to cover, any topics you would like me to make a video about. I would love to hear what your suggestions are down in the comments below. I'm trying to hit 700 subscribers soon, so please feel free to hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be posting more on the content. And Soulback Sports Podcast is going to have new episodes coming soon. We're trying to get some guests work out as well. And well, that's going to do it. Please remember to like and subscribe. And as always, guys, we'll see you guys in the next one.